And peace of light. So the one-on-one weekly real talk session with the Not Eye of the Week Dream Team, New Order family in the building, National Chief Strategist, the host with the most, I'm the man with the man in the background. You understand what I'm saying? So let's welcome to the stage, microphone, to the platform, National Chief Strategist, adult hip hop entrepreneur, Red Fidel.
Peace and blessings, my brother. It's always good with that introduction you bring on for me. I love it. Like you said, man, I am Red Fidel, the incomparable Red Fidel, and I am the National Chief Strategist for New Order Human Rights New Order National Human Rights Organization under the leadership of Jared Emerson Rose, might I say. And today, in this hour, we're going to bring you definitely a special guest, someone who's been in the industry, who's been doing music for quite some time, for many years. I just got a chance to get to know the brother briefly, and I was listening to some music, and I was really impressed with not only the songwriting, but the production as well. And I could hear the seasoning in the music. So I wanted to really just bring him on and just talk about music, since I'm an artist and since that's what I mainly do, music. And I wanted to get his thoughts and opinions on just the music today, where it's been and where it's going. And I bring you none other than Sam Peezy. Sam Peezy, and I would like you to introduce yourself to the people and just basically tell us a little about you.
All right. Well, peace and blessings to you, brother. Thank you again for having me on. My name is Sam Peezy. I'm a producer, artist, engineer, just all around music industry executive. I own a label. I'm from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Most people wouldn't know where that is unless I said the Alabama Crimson Tide. Then they would know where I'm from. I've been in Atlanta, the Atlanta area now for over 20 years. I've been in the industry for about 20 years. I inked my first deal in 2000 with 8 Ways Entertainment. I began with 8 Ball and MJG. Some folks know who them is, Southern Underground legend. Salute to Ball and Big Do. I've been doing it since then. I signed another deal with Universal Music Group through Crazy Swag Entertainment in 2010. When I kind of relocated here once I remarried. And just since then, everything has been, a journey up and down lately. The last big thing we did was we were able to produce for a Christian hip hop artist by the name of MC Nice. I got my first Billboard #1. Was the album was #1, single was #1, both right at 3 months. So that was a big deal, and I'm proud to say, actually yesterday I got my next #1 with another Christian hip hop artist by the name of BBJ. He's #1 on the gospel internet charts right now. So we're moving, and just grateful to be doing what I do. It's a blessing to do what you want to do for a living.
Oh man, tell me about it, man. As an artist and as a producer, and more so as a creative mind or behind it, I definitely can concur with you, because I resonate the same sentiment, because it's nothing like being able to wake up and really just do what you're emboldened and what you're passionate about. And from our standpoint, from a music standpoint, I love doing music. I love being creative. So I definitely feel you on that, my brother. Now, you definitely mentioned that you've been doing music for 20 years. Now, I can honestly say that I've been around the game that long as well. And so and it's good to talk to somebody who actually has 10 years in the music industry, and understanding and watching this music transmute and transform as it has throughout the years. So my question is, in the past 20 years, let's preferably say hip hop, because most of the artists that you spoke of is they're in the genre of hip hop. Am I safe to assume that? Like A-Ball, MJG, MC, you say MC Nice, and also BBJ. So those are Christian rap artists, right? MC Nice and BBJ.
Right.
So in that 20-year span, how, as far as the messaging hip hop, and we're gonna stay on hip hop right now, just that genre. The messaging hip hop, how, in your opinion, how has that changed in a way or transmuted positively or negatively? Do you think that it has transformed into something that's more homogenous in a positive way, or do you think the music itself is now being narrowed and marginalized to promote, more negativity in a sense?
Well, if I could, I would go back beyond the 20 years when I first fell in love with hip hop, when I was graduating from high school and going into college in 93 and 94. Even though I'm from Alabama, I was a backpacker, so I was all about Tribe Called Quest and De La. But before that, I was all about Public Enemy. Chuck D is one of my top 5 favorite rappers. So one of the things that I noticed that happened, like right when the bling bling era hit, the golden era, the shiny suit era, and then as we got into the new millennium, what happened was the message, the story went away. We're a people that tell stories, and I remember the stories, and everybody stopped telling. Well, the story became the same story. I'm getting money. I got women. I'm getting money. It became the same story, and it happened slowly. But then, like I said, right at the turn of the millennium, it got it out of control, and it became this monster that hip hop is today. And I hate to use the term monster, but it became where hip hop is today, in that it makes so much money for so many things. It's the number one driving force behind every medium in the world right now. So it got bigger. We created something we can control no more. That's the way I like to look at it. It's our music. We created it in the 60s and 70s, and it got bigger than us. It just got so big we couldn't control it anymore. And unfortunately, normally when that happens, and normally when money gets involved, and that's not to say money's a bad thing. The Bible says money answers all things. But the unfortunate part is when money got involved, the story changed, the narrative changed, and it became more about the money than telling the story. I learned a lot about my culture, my people, where I'm from, my relationship with the creator. I learned that through hip hop growing up. And now these kids don't get to hear that. They don't hear that at all. No, there's people like you, and I'm checking your stuff out yesterday. We're still trying to say the message, but we are few and far between, So unfortunately, I hate to use the word negative, but it became negative. It became more about the money.
It's interesting you say that, because I have many conversations I get in with a lot of my hip hop comrades and my music enthusiasts, and I say this. I kind of concur with you on the same thing. I feel like I'm glad to hear you say that it got so big to where it became out of our control, and that's where corporate interests came into play. And I think that hip hop itself became more stifled, and rap music actually grew, and it became a juggernaut. Because I'm a firm believer that there's a stark difference between rap and hip hop, not in the form, but I would say, let me say that right. I would say not in. I guess you could say it's in the same genre, but it's like being part of a tree. It's like being a branch on a tree. There's many branches on that tree, but they're going in different directions. Mm-hmm. So that tree, the bulk of the tree, I'll say the base of the tree is hip hop, and then it just has different branches that have grown out of it to some degree. And one is rap, one is all this other stuff going on. Mm-hmm. But I would say when corporate interests got into play, it really smeared and distorted the craft and the art form itself, and it happened. Like you, I saw it happening too, because also I give hip hop its honor, and I extol it for actually opening my eyes, because like you, I wouldn't have known about some of the consciousness or some of the I would say the pro-black rhetoric that I learned from Public Enemy, and I learned from people like Paris. I learned from people like Paul. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you now. Go ahead, bro.
I'm sorry, my phone went out. But I learned from people like Poor Righteous Teachers and YZ and different people, and even now. And then it's interesting because even when we had our quote unquote gangster music, which was really, I would say, the origin of it really came out of the West Coast strongly with NWA and Eazy-E. Ice Cube and them boys was really still saying a message. It just came across very, I would say, very abrasive and very. It was so raw and uncut that it caught people off guard, and it had this shock value to it. But when you listen to the message itself, it was so poignant and profound that Ice Cube told some of the best stories ever. He was one of the best storytellers as it relates to telling what was going on in LA. I knew nothing about California and LA growing up in Miami. You knew nothing about LA growing up in Tuscaloosa. You know what I'm saying? But hip hop was that bond and that adhesion that brought so many cities and so many regions together to where I knew what was going on the East Coast. I knew what was going on in Texas, West Coast, and so forth. And then me being from Miami, we introduced everybody to Two Live Crew and the booty shaking the whole nine. So it's like it just really amalgamized everybody. And that to me, that became the threat because now we're communicating. And there was a form, to me, the whole concept of divide and conquer was being annihilated because we were being unified. So it was, to me, I think that's where corporate interest and corporate, I would say corporate concern came into play, especially from a political standpoint and a standpoint of keeping the people divided to where they had to interject themselves to do something to break up this art form that was so strong and it was so prolific, especially when it came to like, it was nothing to wear black medallions back in the day. You remember in the early 90s, that was the style to have black medallions. Let me tell you, man, I was so serious. I used to walk around like Brother Jay from X Clan. I had the loops, I had the nose ring, I had the stick. All I wore was the guards, and I was serious about it. But that was an awakening, whether you was in it or not. That was subconsciously awakening that ancestral spirit in you, and that's what I think became a threat to where corporate interests had to intervene, and they had to divest that because that could have been a powerful energy that really, if it ruled the way it ruled now, we would take over. Over. So I totally agree with you. Hip hop, to me, man, it's one of those bridges that brought so many people together. Like you said, you was a backpacker in Tuscaloosa. I would have never imagined that. I would never thought Tuscaloosa, because I go there quite often. I'm very familiar with Tuscaloosa. When I go there, they're all about Alabama football. That's all they about.
That's it.
Alabama football rules Tuscaloosa. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I understand that. So for it to reach you and affect you in that way, it's a testament to the power and the effectiveness and how efficacious hip hop was as a whole. It still is. And what saddens me is that power is now being transmuted and converted into something that, to me, steers our youth in the wrong direction. And I don't have a problem with them telling their side of the story, but to me, there's not enough food on the buffet table anymore. Because back then, you just mentioned, we had Tribe Called Quest, we had Ice Cube, we had NWA, we had Two Live Crew, we had all them boys out the East Coast. I mean, you had Big Daddy Kane, Slick Rick. You had so many different vibes and genres. And then back then, it was an abomination to bite. If you bit somebody, if you was copying somebody, that was like an abomination. You know what I'm saying? So now everybody just Xerox copying what's happening, the new. And I think that's how it has changed, and it's just sounding repetitive, and the art form itself is just being diluted, and it's being waned to the point where it's just really a commercial, corporate, to me, tool to use to pump brands, to sell items, to sell merchandise, to sell all kind of stuff. But like you said, this is a global music, and the most powerful, to me, energy going right now, except for the melanin and black people. Besides the melanin and black people, hip hop is right there.
No, I agree.
So
that's it.
So definitely, man, I feel you on that, man. I'm so glad you talked about that. And another thing that caught my attention, you say you did some work with 8 Ball and MJG. Now, the hands down, that's one of my favorite down south groups ever. I mean, like, I got Outkast, then I got 8 Ball and MJG.
Ball and G.
Ball and G, to me, there's always a dispute over Ball and G and UGK. I like UGK. They're my people.
Yeah.
But Ball and G, I felt them because to me, they spoke from a place I could really feel them, especially MJG. In Miami, we rolled out to MJG. That was like I got. You know what I'm saying? 8 Ball was right too. So how was it working with them, man? How was it being in the studio with them guys and vibing with 8 Ball and MJG at a time when it was so hot?
Well, I right when I signed in 2000 was right the transition to Bad Boy South. So that was really interesting because it was now Diddy's on board. I saw Diddy like once. I ain't got no Diddy story. I just saw him once, in passing in the office. But witnessing Ball, just the creative process around it. Also, and I think I talked about this in my documentary. I'm not sure, but there was some other young producers that got signed like a week before I did, and they were going by the name 86L. They ended up being a group called the Backwoods.
I remember the backwood. Yeah.
You remember them? They had the joint.
The backwood.
Yeah, the guy who produced them, Milwaukee Black, was the guy who put me on. He was who I met. He was the connection. He taught me everything because at that point I was taking beats on a Triton. That's all I knew. He taught me how to use an MPC, and I got into all these things and that. So the main thing I learned from that entire experience was, I learned that producing ain't a one-man job. That was the main thing I learned. I remember sessions where you might see the big name, and I'm not gonna call no name. You see the big face, but they got 4 or 5 other cats come in and play keys and do all these things. So I learned that okay, this is how this works. There are teams to this. It's hardly ever one man that does everything. And then the other thing I learned, the level of professionalism. 8 Ball's incredible. First off, those guys are incredible MCs. I think a lot of folks overlook that. They are incredible MCs. And like you said, they could tell a story with the best of them, and they were lyricists. So they were just perfectionists. So that was the main thing I got out of that was how to be a professional. I was on like 8 months, before I moved on. But I learned how to be a professional, like how to do this for real. And like I said, especially since they were transitioning from doing a Swab House to Bad Boy, and this is that's Nitty Beats was a kid, like literally tracking his drums in stereo, we could just it was just funny to see all of this stuff like right at the beginning, so many people. Like I said, Nitty Beats getting on, with his different sound. Not meeting Timbaland, but hearing his beats in the studio, and seeing how like, wow, how do I get my beats to sound like that? Stuff like that, man. It was just little things. Recording these guys performing their records on the microphone in the studio, and that's something none of these young people know about. They had their records ready. Even if they wrote it, when they got on the microphone, they were performing it like they would perform on stage. And that's why I came across on tape that way. They were performing their records in the studio. The conviction, the drive, all that. That's what that is. They perform. Now I engineer, and I engineer a lot of cats who will freestyle 2 bars, stop, go do their thing, whatever that is, come back 30 minutes, do 2 more bars, stop, do their thing. There's no cohesiveness to that. There's no energy to that. You know what I'm saying? And the engineer kind of has to make it happen. Not then. You know what I'm saying? You talk about one take, because I got it down. You know what I'm saying? And plus, the technology couldn't waste no 2-inch tape. That stuff wasn't cheap. So, it was just different. It was a much, much higher level of professionalism then than there is now. And I always say, and this probably lean on a whole nother subject, but I always say access to technology kind of screwed us up in a way. Because
I say that all the time too, brother. I say that all the time. It has its advantages, but like you said, it's situations like the stop and pace and all that kind of stuff. Because what it does to me, it kind of allowed us not to perfect the craft on that level. Because it's interesting. Because even as I would say I'm an old school MC in a new era. I like to call myself a new veteran. Be honest with you. So being a new veteran, I still write. Most people write on their phones. I still try to write because I want to see my words from the imaginative state go transcribe onto the paper. I want to see that. I want to be able to scribble that out sometimes. I want to be able to have that feeling. I still try to hold on to that. And even when I record, I still try to memorize my songs because, like you said, you can actually go into the feeling of the song. You can close your eyes and really transport yourself in the boot to that place or the sentiment of those lyrics. And when you're looking at the phone or you doing, like you say, them artists, they'll do 2-3 line bars. They go out, they might smoke a blunt or go chill. The artists come back and say something else. The energy is totally different. And a lot of times when you punching in, you can hear the energy difference as an engineer and the emotion. Versus if they would have just did a whole verse, then you would have had that whole consistent energy going, and you can feel it. You're carried and listening throughout the whole verse, and I think that's what a lot of them they get mixed up at. But Lil Wayne, and all the artists. You know, I first heard it started with Biggie and Jay back in the day when Jay would say he don't write, and then Wayne came. No one writes lyrics anymore. As far as, you know, everybody's a one bar person, or they try to freestyle, but I just don't see the validity in that, and I don't see the craftsmanship in that. You know, so I totally can agree with you on that. And as far as 8Ball and MJG, one thing I would like to know, because you got me excited by that to some degree. I want to know what was their writing process, or when they came in the studio, did they already have it memorized, or did they write in there and they was able to still translate that from paper, or how was that process of being in there?
Well, I never personally, in the while I was there, I never personally saw MJG in the studio, but I did see Ball, and he came in and wrote in the studio, but he did. There are anomalies to everything. Like when you were saying, there's certain people that don't write. All didn't write, but it's here. You know what I'm saying? You sit there and memorize a verse, or if you did write it down, which was rare, it's okay. I'm gonna do this, and then memorize. So the whole process was always they memorize their stuff off the rip. You know what I'm saying? I saw that in the future. I started seeing that with some other artists I worked with. Later on, there was cats I worked with. It was with the UTC, Misdemeanor, and some people like that. They used to be with Juvie and stuff like that, who came actually recorded with me, and they were the same way. They had it on paper, but then they gonna put that paper down when they get on the microphone. It's it's on. It's like, now I'm here with you. You know what I'm saying? So
right,
whatever their libation was, whether it was smoking or whatever, that's what happened. You know, they got to get in their zone, whatever,
right,
and then they go for it. But like I said, the level of professionalism was very rarely did it go past the first take. I mean, the whole verse. You know what I'm saying? Yes. Back then, we talking about back then, the whole 16 bars, not the 12.
Exactly. Right.
Sometimes the 24 or the 30, however the song called for.
Talk to them.
It's that, and that's why I dig your song so much. I was like, wow, 3 verses. I ain't seen 3 verses in forever. You know?
Oh man,
it's just a different level, man. You know, and there's certain things I miss. I miss 16 bar verses. I mean, yes. I really do. It just feels better to me. I don't know if there's something mathematic to that. Maybe I need to research that. I don't know, but a 16 bar verse feels better than a 12 bar verse. It feels like I have to kind of smush everything into this format, and it goes back to the commercialization again, and what that does, because radio did that. I mean, if you notice now, songs are rarely over 3 minutes now.
That's right.
I mean, the ideal, and there was some cats I was working with a few months ago. There was a cat named Kibo Gotti. Kibo is from Atlanta, and he was he's over there with Shakespeare, my partner Shakespeare, and them. And Kibo did a song that when he rapped 2 8-bar verses. Like, most of the song was the hook. And I didn't at first. I don't disagree with anything. That's one of my ways of always keeping the energy where it needs to be. I don't necessarily disagree. It's just that I may challenge it, but I'm not gonna disagree. You understand what I'm saying? So I didn't disagree with it. I just wanted to understand. I was like, so why are we doing this? Y'all break this down to me. And that's when they were saying, look, man, this is where music is headed. You know, I think right before that song Gucci Gang that came out. Gucci Gang, Gucci Gang, Gucci Gang, Gucci Gang, Gucci Gang. That dude did the hook and one, I think, 8-bar verse and the hook, and the song was over. So I was like, well, this is where we are. And it goes back to what you said, because you just enlightened me on something that I really never thought about. The communication broke down. I can't tell you what I need to tell you in 8 bars. You understand what I'm saying? I can't communicate that in 8 bars.
I can't do it.
No, I can't do it. So, like I said, he rarely wrote. But like I said, there are anomalies to everything. People talk about Jay-Z. Jay-Z is an anomaly. You know, I wish people would stop thinking that because one person can, you can. It's just some people, I mean, everybody ain't LeBron. Everybody ain't Jordan.
Right.
You might have a wicked jump shot, but you're not Jordan. You understand what I'm saying? We don't get there, but so many of those in everything that we do. And I just feel like the Biggies of the world, I've heard those stories too. I wish I could have went to the studio with Biggie. But I've heard those stories, but he didn't write. You know,
I've heard that as well. I heard that too.
It's off the hook. He's got it in the dome. There's that lyrical exercise. I don't know if you remember that on the blueprint. It's at the end of the blueprint Well, he talked about he just driving on the bridge and he just memorizing the rhymes until he got it. Well, there's a certain level of dedication in that. You know what I'm saying? I'm like you said, that's a perfection of the craft. Where it's like, no, I got my rhymes and what I'm gonna say. I got the beat. Let me go listen to the beat or whatever. When I come back, I'm gonna have what I want to say. Versus the process now is way different. It's come to the studio, listen to hundreds of beats, pick one, and write right then. Versus, having your beats already ready to go, and I'm gonna do it. It's just everything's just different. Like I said, I don't knock it. It's just different.
I totally agree, and I agree, but I disagree sometimes with the process, and I disagree when, like, say when someone asks me to do a feature, or they might want me to get on there with them. Off the rip, I tell them, give me the beat, let me listen to it, let me marinate with it. I need the beat to talk to me. I need the beat to speak to me because the music tells me what to say. Once I hear the beat a lot of times, that's times when I write without a beat because I may have a strong idea. But if you give me a track, that track is going to kind of navigate my pen. It's going to tell me which way I need to go. And I can't do that going straight out. Well, put this right. I'm going to say I can't. I choose not to do that going straight in the studio, listen to a beat, unless it totally moves me. Now, there's been times when I heard a beat, it just touched my spirit, and a whole 16 or a whole 24 or 3 verses will just pour out. That's been far and few, but I've had those moments, and that's when you know something channeled in, and you kind of connected with something. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I feel you on that, and going back, segueing back to when you said about a 16 versus a 12. I don't see how you can condense a story down in 12 bars, which is what 12 bars and 6 measures, basically what it is. Yeah. And give a complete thought. I just don't see how you can do that effectively. Now you can do it if you're a country singer, because country singers, they can say 2 lines and it means a whole paragraph. They just got that something about that they wordplay. But in rap, it's hard to do that. In hip hop, it's hard to do that. And I'm like you, I like 16s. And sometimes when I'm in story mode, I tend to go past the margin. Sometimes I may go past 16 bars and I might give it 18, or back in the day, I might give it 24. And there's times when I did a whole 32. Because look at Too Short. Too Short used to have rhymes that those 8-minute songs.
5 minutes, man. Yeah.
and we rapped every word of it without even saying, oh, this song too long. No, we rapped every word with vigor and with excitement. You know what I'm saying? So I totally understand, man. It's crazy. The process is amazing to me because I look at my nephew and some of my little cousins who be rhyming, and they do that same process. They do little punch-ins, and I'm like, "Phew, what y'all doing, man? I try to teach them. I'm trying to motivate, like, write your songs out, get your full thought out, and be able to scrutinize that thought. Sometimes that first thought is not the one you want to go with. You want to be able to look at that rhyme a few times and make corrections. So when you put that thing on, when you spit it through the mic, you're totally confident with it. You're totally confident how it's conveyed and more so how it's received. Because sometimes people say stuff and listening back on it, you be like, oh, I don't know if I really want to do that. Because I've done it at times when I would say when I probably was too inebriated in the studio. It might sound good that night, but once I wake up in the morning, listen to that session, I'm like, oh man, I got to correct that. I got to fix that. I was slurring right here or such and such, but it was vibing in the studio. You know what I'm saying? So I totally get it, man. I know the situation so well, man. That's very interesting, man. So working with, let me see. So working with 8 Ball and MJG and that particular environment and just working in the industry from that standpoint. Now it seems like you're working with Christian artists now. How is that different? Do they apply the same approach and practice with their rhymes, or are they more disciplined or more craft, or they exhibit more craftsmanship with they have their songs written, or do they take the same approach as most of our commercial and urban MCs? How do they go about it?
Well, I was blessed to get introduced to it. Because like I said, from 2000 till about 2010, it was like the continuous pursuit of a placement. You know what I'm saying? And that's all I wanted was a placement. So it was different. I wouldn't have even entertained the Christian hip hop artist. I'm just keeping 100 with you. I wouldn't even entertain that because I wouldn't consider that no placement, and I'm trying to get a check. you know. But as time moved on and as I elevated in the game, like I said, in 2010 when I signed that situation, I was blessed to work with a whole bunch of you said bass artists. That's why I kind of grinned when you said that, because right around 2010, the company I was with was doing a Bass Superstars project. We were working with Shadi, Kilo,
my boy.
Game Twins, Raheem, The Dream.
Oh man, all my people.
I mean, you name them. The only person we did not get on board was Uncle Luke, but we were trying. And so I had all those opportunities to do that. So when this opportunity was presented to me in 2018 by MC Nice, who himself, you know, had done a lot. You know, he wrote for Tupac. He wrote hooks for Pop. You know, that did it for me. I was like, dog, you know, we're not worthy, you know, and you want to work with me, you know. So he's got plaques and placements and all those things. And he had done it, and he was just kind of tired from a conscious standpoint. He was like, I couldn't have done this before because the culture wasn't ready for it. He was like, I always considered myself a Christian artist. He was like, I know what I believe, but he was like, the culture wasn't ready for it. So fast forward to 2018, when he says, we're just going to do this. We're going to go all the way in. Neither one of us had no stigma per se of we're limited to this because we're in Christian hip hop. We got to stay in this box. So that kind of made the creative process very similar to what it was in the secular hip hop. It really was no difference. But considering Nice is Brown Iron area, old school, he had his records wrote. The concepts was there. He, you know, I tell the story all the time. It's on my documentary. When he came to me that summer and said, hey, Peezy, I want to do a gospel album. And I was like, word? And he was like, yeah. I said, all right. I sent him a pack of beats. I purposely picked the beats that nobody picked. I just wanted to see what happened. You know what I'm saying? And I sent 15 beats. He picked 14 of them. And that ended up being an album. That album was number one. You know, so I think it says a lot to what he put to the records, because when he sent them back, every record had a concept. He was talking about something on each and every record. And sometimes we have to be careful with it in Christian hip hop. He wasn't too preachy. The entertainment, you know, factor was still there. And it still banged, you know, so all of that was still there. So as far as the difference, I do think that the artists are more concerned about the message, because that's the most important part in it. And I wish that, you know, secular hip hop would get on it. But that was one thing it was more concerned with. Was they're more concerned with the message, so they think more about the music. You know, the only flaw I see now is a lot of the artists that are in that Christian hip hop genre are trying to sound like a lot of the other artists, and that's a slippery slope, because I think the message gets lost and all that good stuff. So that's where we are. You know, that's where we are.
Man, it's, you know, I got a confession, man. It's funny you say that. I got a confession, man. I've always been, was quote, and I kind of disdain the title now because it's so misused and abused. But I always been quote unquote a conscious MC for a long time. Don't get me wrong. When I first started as a youngster in Miami, I was young, so I was doing a lot of the bass music. I was doing the things that influenced me as what we call a jit coming up in Miami. But like you said earlier, it was them artists. I got enthralled by the 5% nation. I got touched by the Nation of Islam. I got touched by the gods and the earths, and you know, I got touched by the tents of Kadar with the Nuwapians, and you know, so all these different influences and influxes of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that came through the form of rap music just fed my spirit and fed me to the point where it just woke up. It woke up the conscious MC in me to the point where I couldn't really do anything else. But I say that to say this, because for so many years of being on this particular path and this trajectory with my music, so many times I've had people come to me and say, I should consider doing a Christian album. And I was like, because of the things I've said, and a lot of times, especially in the beginning, I spoke from a very spiritual perspective, because you know I was inundated with the information, so a lot of things were spiritual. So I referenced a lot of things from a spiritual place as it relates to what I was going through and what I'm visualizing, because I'm just narrating my environment. But I was like, nah, it ain't me. But I ain't gonna front, man. I considered, I think about that sometimes. But my concern back then was like, I'm not a preachy guy. You know what I'm saying? I'm not preachy, and I don't want every song to be Jesus this and Jesus that, because to me the inchoation of Christian music in the beginning seemed like every rap song, it was like they had to reference Jesus in some way. And I was like, that's cool, but it's like I don't want to do 14, 16 songs of Jesus in my songs. I want to show the difference or the variation of how we can stretch this and still embody and encompass the word of God in these songs without having to say a scripture in the rap or such and such. So now when I listen to raps, like I listen to such art like Bizzle and a lot of people who Christian artists, these boys is real spitters. And you can tell like if sometime before they was Christian, them boys was in the street really spitting. So their conversion, they brought the skill set over and all they did was plug in the doctrine, and them boys spitting now. And I could really get with it. I'm really feeling it. So to me, they're conscious rappers because they're conscious about the things they're talking about, but they're also conscious in a sense of the enlightenment and the awakening that's embodied in the music and the lyrics in which they, disseminate into the people. And I can get with that. I feel that, you know what I'm saying? So I respect that a lot. So to hear Nice do that, I salute him and I take my hat off, because that's a courageous transition to do, especially you say since he was with Tupac and he was writing for Pac, because Pac was on a whole nother polarity on the pole as far as what he was doing. But as gangster and as negative as people want to portray it, pop music was very conscious. Pop was a very diehard conscious MC, but to me, Pop was more nationalistic. He was, to me, his core was a pro-black nationalistic stance that easily made a marriage and jailed itself with the streets, because that's where it was born out of, versus him being like, I would say, like an X-Clan or Brother J-Num type. It wasn't that type, so it was different type of consciousness. So yeah, man, I'm looking at that now, even now. So after this, man, actually, I want to get with you after this, and man, you probably need to vibe and build or something. I'm trying to really expand and try different things, because I got an idea about where I want to take some music that's in my mind as far as embodying that and being able to capture the imagination of the audience, not only those in quote unquote secular hip hop, but those also in, I would say, Christian or conscious, hip hop as well. Because I think at our age, and long as we've been in the game, we've now been seasoned enough to where we can actually pull that off. I really think so.
Right, and I think, well, that's it's funny you bring that up, because when you talked about where people are, one of the reasons I respect Nice as much as I do is because when we did the first album, it was basically an experiment. But since the first album, here's what this brother did. He goes and starts the largest Christian hip hop radio station in the world, because all of a sudden it became more about the culture, more about what you're talking about, more about, okay, I may not say Jesus in this song, but there's a positive message. There's a message about a higher power, about morality, about how we should treat each other, about our community. That message is there. And like you said, people like Bizzle and those people are the ones that we all look at. The Lecrae's of the world. Lecrae just did an interview with my man on the show. So, but with this next album, the funny thing is, when you were saying, well, I got ideas, the funny thing is with Nice on this next album, now he feels like it's time to speak on the culture and why it should be respected. And kind of, for lack of a better way, kind of call out those that are kind of prostitutes, because in every art form that's going to happen. There are some that are just going to take it and try to,
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I agree with you on that.
Hip hop. It happens in Christian hip hop. And I want to clear something up too, Red. I am no Christian hip hop producer. I'm a hip hop producer. It just so happens that most of the guys who jump on the beats rap about something that's Christian. That's how it happens. I signed to ALMG in May, which is affiliated with Island and Atlantic Records. So I have stuff that I got going with Gucci and all of them. Gucci Mane ain't rap about ain't rap about Jesus, but it's just that what I would like to see is, just because somebody says, well, I'm gonna rap about this, then somebody makes the beat. I mean, just for ain't no other way to say it. Somebody make the beat bang less because somebody's gonna talk about Jesus. I don't agree with that. I think what Nice and I are trying to do in the culture is we trying to make, like, this next album, and this is probably a bad analogy, but I don't have another way to say it. We trying to make the Chronic.
Hey,
But
so
you know,
hey,
like,
so
you know,
y'all trying to make a trap Jesus, huh?
right? Yeah,
Hey,
but
you know what? I might have to make that a t-shirt, trap Jesus.
trap Jesus. I mean, yeah, you know, but our whole thing is from a quality standpoint, from the lyric standpoint, from how we actually put records together. You know, like I said, both of us got stripes. We both got stripes in this thing. So when we sit down and make a record, it's much more than okay. Here go the beat. You give me the verse. No, it's
Right.
we produce records. You know what I'm saying? So, um, you know, like I said, this next project he got coming out in November, Iron Dove Volume 1, right now, and it's fun. I was mixing right before we got on the air. Man, you know, I have to pray a lot of times to stay humble because I'm like, I think we're going to change some stuff. I really think we're about to change them. And, you know, it helps that we both have a platform. We got a platform to do it because there are some really good musicians, you know, that stuff just ain't heard. But, you know, we get a chance to be heard. And I feel like when the world hears this, some stuff is going to change, man.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I agree with you. I agree. It sounds like it, man. It sounds like I'm anticipating here, and that kind of like, you know, makes me. It kind of brings me to really the type of genre of music that I coin and I do. What I do is really I do what I call adult contemporary hip hop. That's something I promote. That's something I do because I had to, in order for me to continue doing this music and continue down this journey, I had to put music in its proper perspective as it relates to me and where I'm at. Because when you do it long as I would say I've been doing it, you reach them forks in the road as an artist. I'm just gonna be real. You reach them forks in the road as an artist as far as creatively, where you're going, how times are changing. And you know, you just changing, you're evolving because like every 7 years, the body and the mind there's a new you. You're always evolving. You're not the same person you was 3-4 years ago. So with that, you're changing. Hence, like Pac changed from Tupac to Machiavelli. That's an evolution in his spirit and his mind. You know what I'm saying? So no telling who he would have became again. So we're always evolving. So to me, I feel like music, or I would say commercial music, it doesn't lend way or it doesn't make room for an adult form of this hip hop. Because one of the things that I find to me disparaging is when you tell people, okay, I'm an MC. I don't never really use the term rapper because it sounds so juvenile at this point in my life. So I say, you know, I'm an MC, or I say I'm a poet, or I do music. But if they denote it to being a rapper, they might say, you still do music? Or you told to be doing such and such. And I'm like, how does that look? Is one too old to sing if they doing R&B or soul music? Is one too old to, you know, play an instrument? No, my instrument is my voice. My mind and my universal mind is infinite. So if I'm constantly being creative, I should always still be able to go and do what I love to do, which is rhyme, which is put poetry to a nice beat. That's what I call hip hop. So I had to find a way to keep doing it without feeling like I was in a young boy sport, or I was in something that was considered juvenile by those of my peers, or, you know, my constituents. So I came up with my adult contemporary hip hop. So the things I do, or the type of music I do, I try to appeal to the adult listener and meet them at their level. You know, the things we're going through as adults. Because I'm a father, I'm a grandfather. So I ain't got time to be talking that. I don't go to the strip club and all that. So I can relate from past experiences, but I can't relate from current situation or current now. So I want to talk about now. I'm talking to the garbage man. I'm talking to the mailman. I'm talking to those who got to get up 5 a.m. go handle their bills and go such and such. But they might have talent, or their dreams might have been deferred because they chose to take a responsible route of raising their family and put their dreams on the back burner. I'm talking to them. I'm living them. I'm letting them know that we still here. It's still a voice that's representing us from our era, from our genre, from our time space. You know what I'm saying? That's still making good music, and that has been challenging. But I feel that I'm just going to stay with it because I think that people are catching on now. Because like yourself, we're adults, and you stated to me earlier when we spoke that you're 45 years old. That's a blessing, brother, that you can still be this relevant, still effective, and still a great producer at this space, and still actually chiming in and touching into the frequency of the youth with your music. That means that you got your finger on the pulse. Should you stop producing because you're 45? No. You shouldn't stop producing because you're 45. That's what you do. So it's like you do at some point. You're nice, actually. Though he's doing Christian rap, you're doing adult contemporary hip hop because that music is appealing to adults and meeting us at the adult this place that we're at mentally. And that's why I'm really trying to grow that lane and make that a viable genre of music to be considered and to be reckoned with, really, because I see in my mind these hip adult contemporary artists getting awards just like such and such, and allowing people to continuously be creative and grow old with this craft, man. And because sometimes the best music is in us now. What I was spitting back then that I thought was good and raw, it can't compare to what I know now from experience. And what I'm able to actually pen now has so much now. It has so many dimensions, so many layers to it now, to where that onion smells sweet now. Before it was just a piece of garlic. It was a garlic bulb, but now I got layers on it. It's a good onion. It's a Vidalia that I'm offering now. You know what I'm saying? So when you cut into it, it's just spewing everywhere. The aroma just messing with you. You know what I'm saying? So
right.
It's interesting now. I get into it. I get excited about it because I'm so vested. I'm so invested in this music, man, and the art form itself, man, and I love this crowd because honestly, it saved my life, man. I come from some real, you know, everybody got their story, but I come from some beginnings in Miami that if it wasn't for the music, man, I don't know where I would be. So I really pay homage to this hip hop, man. It really tackled me, saved me. It kept me, it steered me, it kept me motivated, man. It kept me disciplined because I always wanted to be the best MC. I studied a lot, I read a lot. I was always what they call a didact, which is a person that's you know, a self-learn. I always was self-taught. I always had an affinity for words. I felt like if you are a poet or MC, words should be your best friend. You shouldn't be recycling the same words. You should constantly be expanding your vocabulary and really building on that. So I remember when I remember reading the autobiography of Malcolm X when he said he was in jail, he read the whole Bible. So I read the whole Bible. When he said he read the whole dictionary, I read the whole dictionary. I remember Word On and Write On magazines. Reading in there back in the day on the DOC, who was my favorite MC ever. The DOC is my favorite MC. I remember him saying that his father used to make him learn 3 words a day. So you multiply that by 365 days in a year. Imagine how many words that is. And so now you can now it's indicative of the kind of MC he was, and you can see why his album No One Can Do It Better still to this day, if you put it in from a lyrical place, it's still relevant because his vocabulary and his diction was so strong that few artists of that time and even today can even compare to it. You know what I'm saying? So those are the people I pattern and I'm molding and chalk and outline myself after. You feel me? So it's important.
Yeah, I definitely want to touch on the adult contemporary thing because I think what happened is people don't realize it. Hip hop is only like 50 years old. It's not that old. So it wasn't old enough to have the different genres. Because if you look at rock, there are classic rock stations. You know what I mean? Even with jazz, you have like the straight ahead jazz, you got mainstream, you got smooth jazz. Every genre is right at 100 years old, or a little under 100 years old. Hip hop's 50. So the thing, a lot of what happened is the people who were saying, "Oh, you too old." No, I'm not, because actually we created it. So how am I too old to do something that I helped to create? You know what I'm saying? I take a lot of offense, and it's one of the few pet peeves I have. I don't have a lot. There's not a lot that gets to me, but one of the things that does get to me when people say you're too old. I produced one of my best friends, Bone Breaker Jones, is an MC. We've been actually in the group since '94. We've been rocking since '94. His brother is one of the best MCs I ever heard in my life. Will wrap circles around a lot of these young cats. And the main thing, he's too old. He's 2 years older than me, 47. And most people be like, he too old. That's not fair. I just don't think that's fair for people to say. So what I have observed, Red, is how Atlanta now has a classic hip-hop station where they only play stuff. I'm noticing all this stuff. It's slowly but surely. That's why I would encourage you to keep doing what you're doing, because I think this is slowly but surely happening. I think that hip-hop, the people are finally realizing it. I mean, let's think about it. Let's look at it this way. We grew up with, like I said, with Public Enemy and all of that. But then at the same time, later on, here come Jeezy, 2 Chainz, T.I., all these guys. these guys are 40 plus now too. Jay-Z's 50. You feel what I'm saying? So at some point, people are gonna have to listen to that music. 2 Chainz's last project, Rapper Go to the League. I really dug that project because I think he tapped into something that a lot of folks didn't think he could. But then when you look at the fact he's either 40 or almost 40 or 40 plus, I'm like, well, he's just speaking on issues that he's having to speak on now. It doesn't make sense for guys our age to go put on little jeans and start rapping, like you said, about strip club and being lit and all that makes no sense. It's inauthentic. And as inauthentic as hip hop can be, I think the consumer ain't as dumb as we think they are sometimes. And they can pick up on that. They can pick up on the fakeness. And some of these older guys are trying to do that, and that's why I say, man, keep doing adult contemporary. Because I know that's what me and Nice do. As a matter of fact, Nice calls it grown and blessed. So yeah, that's
I like that too. I like that.
Yeah,
So it all ties. It's interchangeable. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. He was like, this album, we on that grown and blessed piece. This is what we do. He was like, man, look how old we are. We can't make the bounce record. We can't make the trap records. We can't. I was like, I can make them, but it won't be authentic. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's no reason. So you just make the music that you know and love. I play instruments. I love music, but again, I'm a backpapper. Jay Dilla is my favorite producer. I love sampling. So it's a little bit of both. I always say I'm all of these things. I always tell everybody I'm Dilla, Dre, and Timbaland all in one.
Wow.
That's my thing. Because being where I'm from Alabama, you don't have a direct influence. You know what I'm saying? Later on in life, we had the Dirty and Dobie. All that came on later. But that was later. When I was coming up, all I heard was New York. And then my brother moved to Detroit, and he stayed there a lot of his life. That's how I got into Dilla. I knew about Slum Village Volume 1 way before everybody, was on that. So now you talking about Dilla. Then, the Chronic come out. And you remember the Chronic drop, that changed everything.
That changed the whole scope, the whole landscape.
The whole thing. That's the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper. That's Sgt. Pepper. So that's one of those genre changing records that happen. So all of a sudden I'm hearing leads and bass guitars. And again, I didn't know you could do that. I was like, oh, you could play instruments? Then here come Outkast and Organized Noise. And I'm like, oh, here's even more of it. This is like what I hear at church. So I get to hear all of this. And sometimes, it's a gift and a curse being from Alabama. The curse is, as far as technology and knowledge of the music industry, it still is, unfortunately, in 2020. It's a third world country, unfortunately. But the gift was I didn't have nothing that could influence me one way or the other. I could be as creative as I want and, come up with, this is my sound. This is it. So I really think, like I said, brothers like yourself, one of the most perfect examples of what we talking about. Fonte last album that came out. I mean, this dude, he talking about going to the funeral and eating the same food that killed his dad, dealing with diabetes, still grown man issues. Like I'm 45.
Exactly.
I just got diagnosed as diabetic. So here I am having to change my diet and exercise and do all this. That's what I relate to. You can't relate to me like you said. You talking about going and spending bands at a strip club does nothing for me. I'm happily married. So that does nothing for me. What would do something for me is like what he rapped about. I'm like, oh, somebody else going, when we get older, there is no playbook for getting older. You know what I'm saying? So when people, again, music, rap being the communication, and I'm going to take that with me. I'm glad you said that one. Rap being the communication vessel, I get to hear other brothers that are going through the same challenges I am, and I get encouragement from it.
Exactly.
So that's man, stay on that path. Yeah, we're going to get together on that. But
definitely
please,
that, man. I definitely want to get with you, and I want to share something, because I recently I put a mixtape out. My mixtape is out now, but I put that as like a chum in the water, just kind of like to, just kind of let people know I'm still vibing. But I actually have an album right now in tow that I want to really drop. And it's actually it's the perfunctory and introductory album to my whole adult contemporary music. You know what I'm saying? Like that whole genre I'm trying to do. And I got probably about 9-10 songs. It's really good. I definitely want to sit with you, and I would like no one has really heard it, so I want to preview you to this and kind of get your opinion on it, just vibe with you, so you can hear where I'm going with it and let you hear it. And one thing I've taken on the task of doing is having more instrumentation, because you said something that was very keen to me in creating this. Being from the South, I feel that one of the things we did bring to hip hop was instrumentation and live music playing. Like New York, they was the king of sampling. Don't get me wrong, I love sampling too, because sampling, it has an energy with it. Certain samples you can't replicate that the way it was played back then. I can't replicate. Very few people could really replicate the way the drummer was playing with James Brown and the JBs. Them, everybody sampled some of them drums. Break beats was like everywhere. If you didn't have no break beats, some of them break beats was irreplicable. You know, you can't replicate that stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's just, and it had an energy about it that you had to capture that. It was like, it made you, it made you speak conscious. If you really look at it, people like, I say the original music started coming away to me with Dr. Dre. He was very instrumental in playing music, because Brian Big Bass Williams and a lot of them, he used to have playing on his music back in the day with NWA and the Niggas for Life and them albums. If you read the credits, because I was really into the credits, he would always have Brian Big Bass Williams. He would always have backup singers. He always had, what he would do is hear a sample and he would replicate the sample with live people, which was good. But to me, that was the beginning of people really incorporating live music, because hip hop was only known at that time for sampling. And then the South, we took it to a whole other place with the soul we put on it. We put that gumbo on it. Because to me, when Organized Noise came to the game and Outkast now, they showed you with that soul feel like, with that real ancestral spirit was in that music to me. That's just to me. Even down to Luke and our music. Our music really, we had some samples, but it was strictly bass and drum. Our music, to me, I tell people, Miami music is tribal music. We're more Zulu in Miami. That's why cats walk around with no shirts on. That's why we all dreaded and locked up. We Zulu, we soldiers, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, we don't our music is indicative of our spirit. We under the sun all day. So, you know, we active people. So our music got to move for us. So our music got to have that. It got to have energy for us. So our music represented our lifestyle, our culture, the way we ate, the way we thought, the way we played, you know. So, and likewise in Tuscaloosa. When I think of Tuscaloosa, you know, I think of soul. I think of some down home blues, or incorporating some real good soul and the cries that come out of them. And because y'all really ancestors of those who were before y'all. I mean, the things that could come out of your gene pool, if you tap into, if some of them artists tap into the spiritualness inside themselves, they can wake up that ancestral DNA in them that's gonna bring back that old funk, that old sound, and even the lyrics. You know what I'm saying? So it's so metaphysical to me. It's beyond just listening to the music. It's actually getting inside the music and getting into the melody, and it's real science to me. You know, this is a conversation you and I can have in the studio, but it's a real science to me. But I feel you on that, man. I feel you. I just think that live instrumentation was so instrumental, even down to Scarface. That whole Scarface and them boys, they was known for live. That Houston sound, Scarface, Face Mob, and all of them. Them boys had a lot of live instrumentation. It wasn't live bass guitars. It was live lead guitars. Always good singing. I was like, yo, the South really brought soul to hip hop on that level. But at the same time, now I think, to me, the instrumentation on some aspects is gone. And like you mentioned earlier, when we started this segment, the digital age and the technology has made it now to where you could go get Fruity Loops, or you could go on Reason, or you could go on Pro Tools, or you could go on any of these platforms and create a beat. And it's really, you never even seen a real drum. You might not have never played a real piccolo or play such and such. You hear the sound, so you don't even know what the instrument is like. You don't even know what it feels like. You know, so certain things that I think as an artist, you should at least know how to play an instrument, or you should at least have a strong familiarity with something that's involved with music from a standpoint of physicality. You know what I'm saying? Versus just a machine or a computer. Because I go to studios now, they don't even have a drum machine. They don't have nothing. It's strictly a computer. I'm like, what are we doing here? But that's what it is, you know? What an instrument. What's going on? That's the thing. Yeah, or they pulling the beat off YouTube. YouTube is the new beat, the new producer now. They smashing the beat off YouTube.
It's a trip.
Or SoundClick. SoundClick and YouTube.
SoundClick or YouTube. Yep.
But yeah, man, I enjoyed this talk. And as you can see, we could go on and on, man. I was pretty much up, but I just wanted to vibe with you, man. You really, we spoke on a subject that's very dear to me and strong to me. And I want to vibe with you on some music, man. You know, I'm gonna give you a call, and we're gonna definitely extend this conversation, and see about linking up and, you know, really getting together, man. So to conclude, man, I just want let me see what I just got all off my questions. To be honest with you, I'm a little excited myself, man. Usually I'm a little bit more poised, but I love to talk about this music, brother. Love to talk about this music. So let me ask you this. So let me see. Let me go at least give you one of my questions. This one, I think this is a good one. If you had a chance to work with, I would consider your favorite artist, or who you would consider your favorite artist, who would that be?
It's gonna sound funny, but it's Rick Ross.
Really?
Yeah. I mean,
Hey,
I know that's kind of threw everybody for the loop after everything we said, but I love Rick Ross. I love the way he picks beats. Number one, the way he picks beats. I love it. I love his business acumen. I love his rhyming. I love his voice. And I just always felt like I was like this close from, you know, being on a Rick Ross album. But yeah, if I could right now, it would be Rick Ross or the other obvious one, Jay-Z. Because I look at Jay-Z as the Miles Davis of hip hop. Miles Davis always was in front of the culture. Like every album he put out signified the next movement. Jay-Z's done the same thing. Every time he put out,
yes, he has.
You know, I gotta get movement.
Yes, he has. I gotta give Jay-Z his credit. I might not have bought everyone, but I agree with you. Now it's interesting you mentioned Big Will, Rick Ross. Being from Miami, you know, we're very familiar with him. I came up, and I remember when Ross was in a group back in the day, before anyone knew him. And it's interesting because in the streets, we know some of the same people. And I don't know him personally, but we actually know some of the same people. And I never forget, before Hustling came out, probably 2-3 years before Hustling never came out, I was real strong out there. Everybody knew me. Everybody knew me as a spitter in Miami. They knew what I did. And I never forget, one of my partners who was in the street real heavy, he bought me a CD and he was like, yo, you need to hear my boy. My boy, I forgot what he called it. Before he was Rick Ross, he used to go by Teflon. He used to go by Teflon Don, which he named one of his albums. But that actually used to be his name. That was his rap name. Okay. So he was you got to hear my boy Tef. So I was like, man, put him in. I'm confident. My ego high. I'm like, well, ain't nobody can spit like me. But I heard him. I was like, yo, dude spit. Because I was like, yo, he nice. He was better than the other people that was on the CD. I was like, this guy right here nice. And I ain't think nothing of it. The next thing I know, couple of years later, this Rick Ross dude came out. I'm like, damn, that voice sound familiar. That sound like I know that voice. And it couldn't find it was that same dude that my man put me on back in the day. But he had done kind of reinvented himself and really just, became a really, really all-around great MC. And I like the fact that he does know how to pick beats. And I say this probably with a little hardiness when I say, us from Miami, we know good beats. We know good music. You know what I'm saying? So Big Boy is in his blood to pick good beats. You know what I'm saying? So I love the beats he picked, and of course his voice is velvet. It's butter on the beat. Like his voice is velvet. He knows his voice like anything else. I give him that. He knows how to get inside that beat, and he just gonna surf that beat. And I love how Ross does it. And he be spitting. Like, he be saying some stuff. If you really listen, he be spitting.
Yeah.
So I mess with Big Boy, man, all the way, man. And on top of the fact that I love the fact that he came out giving much honor to my blood cousin. My blood cousin is, and I don't say this too much, but I'm gonna say it to you and for those who may believe, my blood cousin is Booby. So when he hear him say the Booby Boys and all that, that's actually my kinfolk. That's my cousin. So to hear him come out and give honor and credence to my cousin Booby, who reputation I don't even need to talk about, that's an honor. You know what I'm saying? So I respect that. I respect that. For sure. Okay. You know what I'm saying? So Ross, my dude, like you, that's an artist who I would love to work with too. I would love to work with him. I would love to do a song with him, and I would love to link up. And I got some songs that actually are in that same vein because we actually like the same type of music. So a lot of my music has that Justice League type feel. You know, it has that instrumentation. It's really laid back. It's really heavy on the bottom end as far as the bases. You know, I like my music to sit. I like my music to ride, but I'm gonna spit on top of it at the same time. So he and I kind of got some of the same taste, and I try to be careful not to pick the same type of vibe because I ain't trying to replicate it, but I know what I like at the same time. So it's pretty cool, man. Pretty cool. So that's what's up, man. I mean, I hate that we gotta close and shut it down, but definitely got another we got another show coming up. But brother, it's been a pleasure, man, on the show, man. And let the people know, and all those who are listening, man, where they can actually, you know, go on to find you or hit your music or your website. Give them some information to your social media platforms as well.
Okay, well, anything Sam Peezy. I think I'm about 20 albums deep on Apple Music, on everything Sam Peezy. My Facebook is just, you know, _ Sam Peezy. I'm Anthony Sam Peezy Avery there. On IG, I'm Sam Peezy MAA. The MAA stands for Miles Anthony Avery. That's my jazz moniker. I had a jazz album I put out this year that was nominated for a Grammy. So we got our fingers crossed on that. And on Twitter, just Sam _ Peezy. So get at me anywhere. But like I said, if you want any of my music, it's on every streaming platform. Our last album that we put out was entitled Dwayne. They Want All You Negroes Exterminated. Where
okay.
It's also my middle name. So I spoke on, you know, the conscience where we at, the state of where we are right now. So pick up Dwayne and everything. Like I said, just Google Sam Peezy, SAMPEEZY. You'll find quite a bit. I've done my work. I've planted my seeds, so my harvest is out there. And be on the lookout. My documentary, 18 to 2, is getting ready to drop probably in November. We're trying to do a deal with Netflix. If it don't happen, we'll be on YouTube. But yeah, the documentary is coming out. And like I said, MC Nice, Iron Dove drops next month. I think that's a game changer. My wife album is out, Selah Avery, Fearless. She does what we call worship soul. It's like I guess neo soul for the Lord or whatever. If you want to call it.
I love that whole concept.
She's been #1 in the UK during here all summer. So it just started to catch on in the States. So just make sure you check us out. Google all things Sam Peezy and I'll come up.
Awesome, man. Awesome. It's been again, man, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for taking this time to just not only enlighten us, but to just share some moments, some memories with us, man. I'm definitely happy that you came on, man, especially last minute. So I thank you, my brother. I appreciate you. And I believe everything is divine intervention, no coincidence. So we were supposed to be here today. And for those who are out there listening, as far as my social media platforms, if you want to see or hear any of my music, you go to Red Fidel at Instagram, Red Fidel, Facebook, Red.Fidel, and also I'm on YouTube, and I'm also on Spotify and all the major platforms as well. So you can see me on that as well or hear my music. And definitely, brother, I want to definitely thank you, and I'm gonna be giving you a call outside of this because we got to link up. We definitely got to link up.
Let's do it.
All right,
let's do it.
All right, man. Peace and blessings, man. And again, knowledge. Appreciate it, my brother. Knowledge born Allah. And that's another hour, another segment down with Dream Team, the Dream Team, New Order, National Human Rights Organization's own Red Fidel, the incomparable. Peace out, y'all. One love.
Yeah. Now we gonna tell them that in front. We tell them like this, yo. I'm an African. I'm a African. I'm an African. I'm a African. Yeah, y'all like that? No more. This man's mind is open. I'm an African. I'm a African. I'm an African. I'm a. Let's get back to the
motive is best developed by recognizing the common enemy.